Okay, so this is the screencast for the second workshop group. This was the bedroom that we did at the chateau, and if you'll recall, this is more or less the shape of the bedroom. You guys were more or less all standing in this area over here, and there was the hallway, and then there was some people down here as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through how we composed the shot and how we lit it, and then we're going to go into Lightroom and grab the two exposures that we need, and we're going to process those out in Photoshop. So if you remember, we dropped the shoot through umbrella. That was just outside of the field of view. So this pink line showing where we had our composition. You'll remember that the reason that we chose to cut off this side table was because it was a direct mirror of what was happening over here. So we don't need to beat someone over the head. Anybody with a brain can fill in the blanks to know that both sides of the room are exactly the same. So we were shooting the 5D Mark II Diesel Edition 17 to 40 f4L at 26 millimeters, and we had a Flashpoint Zoom Lion coming through a shoot-through umbrella with a 1/4 CTO gel. And the reason I use a CTO gel is because the blue, the umbrella will sometimes, give a bit of a blue cast, so I like to warm that up a touch. So you'll recall that on the first shot, we just had a shoot-through umbrella doing all the heavy lifting, and I'll pop over into Lightroom here and show you that exposure. So this was the exposure. That's just a single shoot-through umbrella, and that was coming sort of right from the side of the camera. And we're looking mostly just at getting a good exposure for basically just the top half of the frame. We don't really care what's happening down at the bottom because we're going to bounce some light from the top and to fill that in. So let's pop back here. And on the second exposure, what we did was I turned down the shoot-through umbrella. I turned it down probably, I think we were maybe at either full or half power, so I maybe turned it down to 1/4 power. It doesn't really matter. It's just basically I want to make this now not the main light. I just want it to be a fill light. So if you recall, I was standing more or less kind of in this area here, and I was holding my little light out and I was bouncing it off the ceiling, and then that's causing the light to come down this way. And we're going to get shadows on this side of the bed. You'll notice the shape of this side table gets really nice. So I'll show you that exposure. That's the one here. So there's just two exposures for this, and what I'm going to do now is sort of pre-process them, and we'll bring them over into Photoshop. So the first thing I do always, I'm going to send you both of these files. This was the original ambient file, so this is where we started. This is at ISO 320, 26 millimeters, f8 at 1/20th of a second. So that was just our base ambient exposure. I was just looking to retain some detail in these shears over here. Again, depending on your market, you don't want to get an envelope of anthrax like Jason. So if you got to expose for the view, that's where you're going to start your exposure. In this case, this is where I chose to start. So the next thing we did was we just added that shoot-through umbrella light, and then we turned that shoot-through umbrella down to fill, and we added our top-down light. So when you get these files, I'll send you all three. I'll send you the ambient, I'll send you the umbrella shot, and the top-down bounce. But we're really going to start with this one here. So the first thing I always do when I bring my files into Lightroom is I click auto just to see what's going to happen. And so it adjusted our exposure, our contrast, our shadows, our highlights, and so forth. So I don't like what it did to shadow, so I'm going to drop that back down. I don't like how it's too bright, so I might pull that back a bit. And I'm going to pump up the vibrance a little bit. And in this case, I'm going to pull out some of the blue. Excuse me. We were getting a sort of a blue cast on the windows here and on the floor. So I'm just going to pull that blue out. And I'm going to warm it up just a touch. So I think that's pretty much what we're going to do. And then I'm going to copy those settings and I'm going to paste them onto our other exposure. And this one, I'm going to warm it up a little bit more, and I'm going to bring the shadows up just a touch. And maybe the highlights down a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to hold Command, I'm going to click on both of those, and I'm going to open those as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to shift click and I'm going to auto align these layers, edit, auto align. And I'm going to change the layer order so that we have our exposure where I was bouncing off the ceiling as our top exposure. And I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click our layer mask button here. That's going to apply a layer mask and invert it. And then I'm going to grab our gradient tool. The keyboard shortcut for that is G. And we're going to default our foreground background color to white foreground, black background. And I'm going to hold Shift and just drag a gradient from the bottom all the way to the top and let it go. And now you can see where we can still see a little bit of that light on a stick. I'm just going to grab a big soft brush with 10% flow. Black, and I'm just going to brush that area out. And you can see now we've gone from this to this. So some areas to really pay attention to are the shape of this side table over here. Really flat and ugly. Now it's got some great shape. If you also look at the bedspread, we've got some good shape on that as well. We've eliminated the shadow, which shows that the light was coming from more or less behind the camera. We're creating contrasting edges where we have light meeting dark and dark meeting light. So that's how we create shape and volume, is by having those contrasting edges. If you look at the shape on this fuzzy thing down here, I don't know what that's called, but basically blown out and flat there. And now we have some great shape to it. So again, that's really quick and dirty, and it's a great shot. So for real estate, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold Shift Command E. That's going to flatten those layers, and then I'm going to hold Shift Command R, which brings up my lens correction profile. You're going to remember that we shifted, or we tilted the lens down a little bit so that we could have the camera up a little bit higher to eliminate some of that ceiling. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pull our vertical perspective back into place. So where I'm looking is I'm looking at the grid line on this side table here, making sure that this is nice and straight. I'm looking at the posts on the bed. I'm looking on this sort of table at the foot of the bed. And I'm also even looking out the window here to see if these windows are all lining up with my grid. So it looks pretty good there. Again, just to show you, if you're not straight up and down, I guess I will do this. We'll duplicate this. Let's say that your photo was off kilter like that. And if we went into our lens correction and we looked at just the one side of the frame here on the right side where we want to straighten up this side table. If you look there, now we're completely straight here, but on the other side of the frame, everything's leaning. So you always have to make sure that the photo is dead square right in the middle of the screen. I wish Photoshop would put some sort of a highlighted grid line in the middle of the screen. That would be awesome, just so you know that that was dead straight up and down. But I think in this case we did a good job making sure the camera was completely level. So again, Shift Command R brings us into our lens correction, and we're going to just adjust our vertical perspective. And I think that looks pretty good right there. So we're going to click OK on there. And now I find that when you do that fake tilt shift effect, sometimes things get a little bit chubby. So I always like to hit my transform Command T. I like to come in to 98 on the width and then up to 102 on the height. And then to constrain that, I go to 102.5. And now that gives me some latitude here where I can move around in the frame. So I can add more ceiling or I can get rid of ceiling. So I think we're going to end up more or less right about there. For real estate, that's done. The only thing I would do, we have a little bit of sensor dust. I would just give it a quick once over. So I would just grab my patch tool, get rid of that. You know, if you were to put this in your portfolio, you could always go through and take out things like the hot spot in the bedpost. So you can really take some time to polish this, but I think for real estate, this is as far as you really want to go. The only thing I would do maybe is grab a hue saturation layer and maybe pump up our hue and saturation a touch. And from there, I'm going to use my sharpening action. So this I posted into the Facebook group. And I have an action. So I have a hotkey for it, but the action is labeled as high-res sharpening, so we can play that action. So that's sharpened it, and then we can save it out. So Shift Command S. We'll make a new folder on the desktop called Workshop Bedroom. And I'll save this as master. Save it as JPEG. Whoops, Mater master. And you can save the quality. Usually for real estate, I'll save quality at 8. Click OK. And now I have another action, excuse me, that resizes to MLS. So I hold Shift Command and I hit F6, and now this is resized and sharpened for MLS. So I guess I could go through and show you sort of how to record an action to do that if you like. Let's go back here to, okay. So to record an action, we go down to actions and we click record. Whoops, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We click new. So this will be called MLS sizing. And we're going to record. So I'm going to hold Command Option I, and that's going to bring up my image size dialog, and I'm going to change this to 1024 on the long edge. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to run my low-res sharpening action, which is in here, Intelligent Sharpen. So I'm going to play that. And then I'm going to add some hue and saturation. And then I'm going to flatten my image and then stop my recording. So in my actions now, where did we put it? MLS sizing. So let me go out of here. Hopefully that's not too confusing. And I can go into my actions and I can play that. And there we go. Now I'm ready for to save this for the web. So I'm going to hold Shift Command Option S. That brings up my save for web dialog. I'm going to save that. It's going to ask me where. I put a subfolder in here, new folder, WS bedroom web size. Save. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let me go back and do this in real time so that you can see how quick everything actually happens. So I'm going to go back here, and I can probably do this in less than a minute. So I'm going to grab these two files, open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so once this is ready to roll, the QuickTime really slows down Photoshop for some reason, but hey, start the stopwatch. So edit, auto align layers. Okay, change the layer order, put a layer mask on, drag a gradient, brush this out, flatten, lens correction. Transform in 2 points, up 2 points. Transform 102.5. Move it in my frame. Patch tool. Hue and saturation up a touch. Sharpen. Save. Master. Resize for web. Save. Boom, done. So that's how quick you can move once you sort of get this stuff down. So hopefully that is pretty clear. And work through the files, load them into Lightroom, do your quick adjustments, bring them into Photoshop, and let me know if you guys have any questions about this at all. But once you get this down, lighting in the field and the post-production, you can make badass photos, and you know, you'll be delivering photos like this for your clients, and hopefully they're going to be better than anything that's in your market. So thanks again, guys. Stay tuned. I'm going to be doing the screencast for the kitchen from the Chateau. I'm going to do the kitchen from the first workshop, the one we shot in the desert, as well as one or both of the bedrooms that we shot the first day as well, and perhaps some of the commercial type stuff as well. So thanks again, guys, and let me know if you have any questions.